Mm. Spiders and snakes haunt the dreams of Svidrigailov, Hippolyth, and Stavrogin. A writer like Dostoevsky recognizes the malignant nature of the fascinations controlling his heroes. Our contemporary writers, our contemporary writers, on the other hand, surrender to their attraction, and the more they are tainted with neo-romanticism, the more willingly they do so. In Notes from the Underground, the mediator bears an eminently symbolic name, Zverkov, which signifies animal, beast. All of the Proustian desires already bore the mark of that beast. Madame de Guermant's charms are those of a bird of prey. In Within a Budding Grove, the novelist compares the movements of the girls to that of a school of young fish. In other words, to the least individualized part of animal life. Later, the comings and goings of the little band make Marcel think of a flight of gulls, which performed with measured steps upon the sands, a movement the purpose of which seems obscure. This obscure universe is again that of the mediator. The other is more fascinating, the less accessible he is. And the more despiritualized he is, the more he tends toward an instinctive automatism. The more inaccessible he is. And the absurd project of self-divinization ends up by going beyond the animal to the automatic and even the mechanical. The individual becomes increasingly bewildered and unbalanced by a desire which nothing can satisfy, and finally seeks the divine essence in that which radically denies his own existence, the inanimate. The tireless pursuit of what negates him leads the hero into the most parched deserts, into those metallic kingdoms of the absurd through which wander the most significant work of neo-romantic art today. Maurice Blanchot accurately remarks that novelistic fiction, in our terms romantic, since Kafka describes an endless circular movement, there would seem to be no end to the pursuit. The hero is no longer alive, but he is not yet dead. Moreover, the hero knows that the end of his search is death, but this knowledge does not turn him from metaphysical desire. The greatest lucidity is also the most total blindness. In a contradiction at once more subtle and more blatant than those which have gone before, the hero decides that death is the meaning of life. Henceforth, the mediator is identified with the image of death, which is always close by, yet always denied. It is this image that fascinates the hero. Death is the supreme goal of desire and a final mirage. Quote, they were seeking death, but it will flee before them, end of quote, announces the angel of the apocalypse. Quote, nothing ends in this world, end of quote, Stavrogin picks up as an echo. But Stavrogin is wrong. It is Dasha who is right when she answers, quote, there will be an end here, end of quote. That end is found in the mineral world, the world of a death which the absence of all movement, of all quivering, has made complete and definitive. The horrible fascination ends in the density of lead, the impenetrable immobility of granite. This is the inevitable termination of that ever more effective negation of life and of spirit, deviated transcendency. The affirmation of the self ends in the negation of self. The will to make oneself God is a will to self-destruction, which is gradually realized. De Rougemont perceived this very clearly and expressed it masterfully in Love in the Western World. The same movement which makes us worship life hurls us into its negation. Ever since Hegel, the modern world has boldly and openly presented this same negation as the supreme affirmation of life. The exaltation of the negative is rooted in that blind lucidity which characterizes the last stages of internal mediation. This negativity, which it is easy to see, is woven all through contemporary reality. is never anything other than a reflection of human relationships at the level of a double mediation. This superabundant annihilation should be regarded not as the true substance of the spirit, but as the noxious byproduct of a fatal evolution. The massive and dumb en soi, which the poor soi always denies, is actually the obstacle that the masochist avidly seeks and on which he remains fixed. The negative, which so many modern philosophers identify with freedom in life, is in reality the herald of slavery and death. In an earlier chapter, we compared the structure of metaphysical desire with a falling object whose shape changes as the speed of its fall increases. Henceforth, we know the end of that fall. Dostoevsky is nearer to that fatal end than the other novelists. Thus, he is not novelist and metaphysician. He is the metaphysical novelist. Dostoevsky has an acute awareness of the mortal dynamism which animates desire. His work does not tend toward disintegration and death because he is a pessimist. He looks like a pessimist because his work tends toward disintegration and death. To perceive the metaphysical structure of desire is to foresee its catastrophic conclusion. Apocalypse means development. The Dostoevskian apocalypse is a development that ends in the destruction of what it has developed. Whether one sees it as a whole or isolates a part of it, the metaphysical structure can always be defined as an apocalypse. All the previous novels are, therefore, also apocalypses. The minor catastrophes which conclude these works prefigure the Dostoevskian terror. One could doubtless trace various influences that affected Dostoevsky and furnished certain details of the apocalyptic structure. The Russian novelist's interpretation is always enclosed in the framework of a national and religious tradition. But the essential is nonetheless dictated to the author by his novelistic situation. Previous novelists are usually only implicitly metaphysical. The full significance of their psychology, their sociology, and their imagery can be understood only if they are extended in the direction of Dostoevsky's metaphysics. On the level of Dostoevskian observation, there is no longer any distinction between novel and metaphysics. All the threads we have connected, all the tracks we have followed, converge toward the Dostoevskian apocalypse. The whole of novelistic literature is carried along by the same wave. All its heroes obey the same call to nothingness and death. Deviated transcendency is a giddy descent, a blind plunge into the shadows. It ends in the monstrosity of Stavrogin and in the infernal pride of all the possessed. The novelist discovers in the episode of the demons of Gerasa the scriptural translation of the novelistic vision. A man lives alone among the tombs. The unclean spirit which inhabits him is exorcised by Christ. The spirit has a name. It is called Legion. It is both unique and many, and it begs to take refuge in a herd of swine. No sooner is the permission granted than these animals hurl themselves into the sea until every last one of them drowns.